When was the last time you sat down to play a new game and before you touched the controller, you decided to read through a rule book this thick? You've probably never done something like that. The point is, the concepts of game and play only exist within the confines of rules, and some games have a lot of rules. These rules put limitations on what we can and cannot do, and from there we find countless ways to tackle challenges and express ourselves. Interestingly, within a game's rules there are structures in place that allow players to overcome challenges, create advantages, and eventually win. In other words, how you achieve victory within the confines of the rules is the core of any game's interactive experience. This is the basic idea behind the terms complexity and depth. So when I asked Smashers whether Brawl has more complexities than Melee, or Melee has more depth than Brawl, I got these responses. Notice how varied they are. Allow me to set the definition straight. Complexity is an easy concept to understand. Still, focusing on gameplay and interactivity, complexity is a measure of a game's rules down to the most minute details. Because all games have rules, it's impossible not to have some measure of complexity. Learning the rules of a game stresses knowledge skills first and foremost. Every conceivable bit of data in Smash makes up its complexity. This includes everything from the rate Peach pulls a voodoo vegetable, 1 in 58, the speed of change Pokemon Stadium transforms, to how much damage Luigi's taunt attack gives. Remember, long-term memory is a source of great power in Smash, and this power is directly related to the amount of complexities in the game. Just to give you an idea of how much data is packed into each attack, just check out this list of properties for each attack in Brawl. So how does complexity affect game depth? Well, directly it doesn't. Some games are deep with very few rules, and other games have tons of rules and are not very deep. Complexity is a measure of the rules/elements of a game, and depth is the opposite, in that it's a measure of the interactivity of gameplay between the player and the gameplay challenges. For fighters that focus on player v player competition, depth is a measure of how players can counter each other back and forth. This may seem like an odd or unfamiliar definition, but I can assure you it's the most accurate, objective, and measurable definition I've come across. Take David Sirlin's definition, for example. This definition describes lastability, which isn't directly tied to any particular type of game element or game design. Some games are great and sell very poorly, and thus they don't last. Some games are very glitchy and poorly designed, yet they sell millions and create huge followings of players. Some games lose their fan base when sequels come along, or when other games of the same genre enter the market. Furthermore, why build a definition of something so essential to the video gaming medium around subjective terms, community involvement, and a time minimum? These are bad moves that reduce the definition's application. We have to take all of these concepts out of consideration. Though many Smashers merged depth and complexity in the survey responses, we can't jumble these terms into the same big group. We have to have a clean way to describe a game's rules and its gameplay. Depth is the essence of gameplay. Focusing on the games part of video games, there are rules that comprise all the different parts and moves that are possible. Complexity. To win at a game, you have to follow the rules and try to gain some kind of advantage through actions or mechanics, and sometimes inaction. When you do something right, you are in essence countering the game's challenge or the game's attempt to stop you. Many games have challenges that are designed to counter your counters. At these moments, new resulting challenges are created. The further this back and forth chain of counters and resulting states go, the deeper the game. This definition of game depth is not only aligned with the core of video gaming, but it's quite measurable. Smash is a fighting game born in the Super Mario Bros. Spirit, or platforming design. This means that players have a lot of control over their movement in the air and on the ground. This makes natural counters the main type of counter in the game. Natural counters are basically dodges. You can avoid attacks by moving back, standing back, jumping, ducking, or attacking in such a way as to dodge using your character's animations. Next, there's the classic fighting game interplay loop between attack, grab, and shield. Like the classic game of rock, paper, scissors, each option is designed to beat one and lose to the other. Sometimes the flow can be reversed, but those cases are much more rare. Part of what makes Smash so uniquely deep as a fighter is how players can press their advantage by continually reducing an opponent's options until they have little to no counter ability left. I call these matrices, which are the equivalent of pins, forks, and checkmate strategies in chess. Matrices are possible due to Smash's decay and cause and effect counters. This is most evident when an opponent is knocked off the stage. Generally, the more you hit your opponent when they're recovering off the stage, the fewer options they have to get back. Also, after getting hit, directional influence, or DI, allows players to attempt to throw off their opponent's aim in follow-up game by changing the angle they are knocked back, anticipating or reacting to incoming attacks, and figuring out where to DI adds a layer of depth or potential to counter an opponent's offensive advantage. In Part 2, I'll shed light on topics like hidden depth, viable options, mind games, and mix-ups. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.